Strong response to Russia's missile attack. Simultaneous operations began in Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia. 15 explosions occurred in Donetsk. Flames rise from the Irmino district of Luhansk. The number of casualties of Russian army reached a critical point. Moscow's preparation period is getting longer. In the Donbass, the intensity of trench warfare began to increase again. Artillery attacks are being carried out on Russian command centers. The communication problem of Russian soldiers broke out. After a record number of casualties, the total number of personnel lost by Russians reached 98,000. Moscow is focused on the Eastern Front and the Crimea. A big mistake will decide the fate of the war. The coordination of Russian forces on the Eastern Front was greatly impaired. Inexperienced soldiers do a lot of damage to Russian army. Trench warfare is gaining momentum. The intensity of the battle is now much higher. In the early hours of the morning, large explosions occurred in an area close to Sevastopol near the Russian military base in Crimea. Russian media announced that Ukrainian army carried out attacks with drones. Russian military press service announced that unmanned aerial vehicles sent from Western countries are actively performing reconnaissance missions in the Crimea, Belgorod, Kursk, and Bryansk regions. After the reconnaissance flights, the Ukrainian army is carrying out attacks on the region with kamikaze unmanned aerial vehicles. This prevents the Russian ports and Russian Navy from moving. Because a cheap system can destroy or damage an expensive military base or a large warship. It was announced that Russian troops began to take comprehensive measures in Crimea. Russian Ministry of Defense claims that Ukraine will carry out massive attacks on Crimea. According to the statements made, if Russian army suffers a major defeat on the Eastern Front, the Ukrainian forces may conduct extensive operations in the Crimea after a period of preparation. Russian army has significantly increased the number of air defense systems in the region, because Ukrainian troops carry out most of the attacks with drones. However, Russian army thinks that if a landing is made over the sea, there will be violent clashes in the region. For this reason, Moscow placed a large number of concrete pyramids on the coast of Crimea to prevent amphibious ships from entering the Crimean coast. According to the Ukrainian press service, most of Sevastopol is thought to be protected by mines. Russian Navy took great measures in the northern part of Sevastopol. If Ukrainian army wants to land, it is expected to advance from the north of Sevastopol, because other parts of Crimea are not suitable for military landings. Many regions have mountainous terrain and extensive forests. The strong actions of Ukrainian army and the successive losses of Russian army greatly worry Moscow. After the attack on the Crimean bridge, the Kremlin began to take measures in every region of Crimea. It was also seen that Russian army dug trenches on Crimea and created new trenches. Moscow is quite afraid of a large number of Ukrainian tanks entering Crimea. For this reason, the number of concrete pyramids on the coast of Crimea, which are given dragon teeth and prevent the progress of tanks, continues to increase day by day. Dragon tooth is a type of anti-tank barrier fortification first used during the Second World War. The female dragon is usually 90 to 120 cm long, depending on the species. Additional fortifications such as mines and barbed wire were placed between the dragon's teeth. According to last-minute statements, Ukrainian army launched a comprehensive attack on Donetsk. As a result of the attacks, 15 explosions occurred in Russian-controlled Donetsk region. While it was announced that the attacks were carried out with HIMARS systems, it was reported that 4 Russian ammunition depots were destroyed in this process. Ukrainian forces are expected to carry out attacks with a large number of rocket launcher systems. Also, a Russian infrastructure facility in the region became unusable. It was reported that the communication and electricity of Russian command centers were cut off. Ukrainian ground forces are expected to conduct a comprehensive operation. We know that yesterday Ukrainian army destroyed a large number of Russian military targets in the region. It is believed that Ukrainian army wants to enter the preparation period with a great victory. Fierce fighting is currently taking place in Bakhmut, Lyman, and Avdiivka districts. Both Russia and Ukraine are making great efforts to capture Bakhmut. Bakhmut is geographically critical. In addition, a major supply route from Kharkiv passes through Bakhmut. If Ukrainian army takes full control of Bakhmut, it will be impossible for the Russians to achieve victory in Donetsk, because direct attacks can be organized from the northeastern region of Donetsk. On the other hand, Bakhmut is considered to be the region where the largest supply route to Luhansk passes. The loss of Bakhmut and Luhansk means that much of Luhansk will soon fall as well. The Izium and Bakhmut line has a very important position. On the other hand, a large explosion occurred in the evening hours in the city of Izyum, Luhansk. As a result of the attacks of Ukrainian army, a large Russian ammunition depot in the region was destroyed. Due to the explosion of the ammunition depot, the flames reached a height of hundreds of meters. Ukrainian authorities claim that one of Russia's largest ammunition depots was destroyed. The attacks are thought to have been carried out with multiple rocket launchers. The rocket attacks of Ukrainian army caused extensive damage to Russian ammunition depots and command centers in the eastern line. This situation causes the communication of Russian soldiers engaged in trench warfare to be cut off. As I mentioned, Ukrainian army is expected to start major ground operations as a result of continuing rocket attacks. It is also expected that the rocket attacks of Ukrainian army will continue. Kiev will have a large number of rocket system ammunition by making new agreements with Western countries. A large number of ammunition belonging to HIMARS systems will reach Kiev in a short time. In addition, 100,000 long-range artillery munitions are expected to reach Ukraine within a week. While the violence of the operations continued to increase, Ukrainian General Staff announced that as a result of the operations, 22 critical areas were cleared from Russians. A total of 5 Russian command centers were neutralized in one day. During the day, Ukrainian Air Force carried out 22 attacks on Russian personnel, clusters of weapons and military equipment, and 3 attacks on Russian anti-aircraft missile system positions. Ukrainian troops shot down 2 Orlan 10-type unmanned aerial vehicles. In addition, rocket forces and artillery units targeted 5 command posts, 4 personnel groups, 6 artillery and 2 ammunition storage points, and a warehouse for fuel and lubricants. Russian army lost a total of 690 soldiers in one day. In this process, the total casualties of the Russian army reached 98,000. Russian army lost 6 tanks, 4 artillery systems, 8 armored vehicles, 4 unmanned aerial vehicles, 5 multiple rocket launchers, and 4 ammunition depots in one day. Russia's heavy losses resulted in a massive drop in Moscow universally. Russia's recovery will take at least 20 years. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg said that they have been making efforts to normalize relations with Russia for a long time. But he said that Putin's attack on Ukraine completely spoiled relations between the two sides. This week, the Kremlin flatly rejected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's calls to withdraw Russian troops by Christmas. Instead, Moscow urged Kiev to accept its claim on the territory currently controlled by Moscow forces. The Kremlin seems pretty far from negotiations. Therefore, shipments to Ukraine will increase day by day. After the Kremlin's statements, Kiev announced that it would respond from the front. The tension is increasing day by day. We have come to the end of another video. We will continue to report the events in the coming hours to you quickly and accurately. We continue to inform you objectively about the events.